Yeah, I understand you guys watched Hamilton this week.
We did.
So what'd you think? And then we'll say what we think.
Is that how this works?
Yeah, that's how a conversation works. It's like a little give and take. Like I say something, and then you guys are supposed to listen. Usually, what I do in a conversation though is like someone else is talking, and then I think of something, and I'm like, I'm going to talk on top of you because I have to say it, and I'm more important.
But I didn't listen to what you said.
So I'm trying not to do that. So sorry. What'd you say? Okay, what'd you guys think about Ham Doggy?
Ham Doggy.
Liked it.
Yeah, my favorite part by far of the whole thing, and this probably isn't good for like the social, breakthrough that was Hamilton. My favorite part was King George, the fucking
the spit coming out of his mouth.
It dribbled down his chin. The song just so is just him doing the solo, and it was such a funny aspect of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get especially triggered by the spit with the COVID context?
Nah.
I did. I found myself like, ooh, extra gross. We heard some controversy behind it. First of all, we thought it was wonderful. Melissa was like crying as usual by the end of it.
I don't care.
Hold on.
Incredible. I was overcome with emotion because the amount of effort and time and commitment it takes to be that good at something is like next level.
Awe-inspiring.
It is completely awe-inspiring. And my niece was watching with us and she was like, this is what you're watching on stage is like 10 plus years of commitment. And I was like, yeah, you're so right. These people commit their lives to this, and oh god, it was just so good. I had goosebumps when we were watching it.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing about you saying that you're in tears at the end is that the very last note of the wife, she kind of screams, and then it just cuts to black, and Jenny and I were both like, what the hell was that? She was just like, oh!
I didn't need that part.
Yeah, it could have ended.
It could have
ended right before that, and then
died. We know.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Good notice, guys.
Good notice. I thought it was the music was cool. Like the tightness of the raps, where every single
tightness of everything.
Every single line has a flow to it, and you're never stumbling over a word. Do you think that it was? Melissa asked this question. Do you think that was a compilation of multiple recordings? And they got the best scenes from everything, or do you think that was one continuous shot?
That was not what I meant. I meant, do you think they recorded it so many times, probably every time they performed, and then watched it back and were like, this is the best recording. This is the one that will be. I didn't mean they spliced it all together.
So do you think it's one of those? Do you think they did, all right, we're going to film it on this date, so get it perfect? Or do you think they filmed a bunch and picked the best one? Or do you think they spliced it together?
No splicing.
I don't think they spliced.
I would guess they filmed multiple live performances and did the best one. Maybe.
But it had a date on in the beginning, so I don't know.
If it did,
that's what I meant. Maybe they just recorded it for the whole year, and then we're like, this is the best one.
Right.
Because they did not mess up one single thing. It was just everything was perfectly timed, and
it seemed like there were some close-up shots that would not have been possible if it was a live performance, because they must have had a camera right up on the stage to get up in someone's grill, unless they had a big zoom.
I think they had big zooms, or else you'd have I feel like that wouldn't be a good Broadway experience to have a camera dude right there.
Oh, we got a Hamilton fan calling in from 903 number here. Welcome to Quarantine Tonight. You're joining the Hamilton discussion. Caller, did you like the production of Hamilton?
I literally know nothing about Hamilton at all.
Well, Lane, welcome to the program, sir. We're just getting into Hamilton. It was, in our opinion, a very beautifully done bit of storytelling
Incredible.
and music and dance and performance. Now, there is a little bit of controversy I was getting into, Lane, so maybe you can help be our tiebreaker and be a little bit more objective with this. I know, but I can lay out some of the historical inaccuracies that I researched in order to be a fair and impartial judge of Hamilton, because there were some folks that said, I don't want to watch that. That's not historically accurate. So one of the historical...
I'll be able to give you a completely unbiased opinion because I literally know nothing about it.
Okay, so Lane, let me give you the worst part of the First of all, if you were going to go and see something on Broadway, or it came to your town in East Texas or whatever, and you're going to go spend a bunch of money to go watch this production, and it was called Hamilton, named after one of our founding fathers, would your expectation, based on the name Hamilton, would your expectation be that this thing is both musical, entertaining, and historically accurate?
100%.
100%. You would expect for this to be accurate. You would allow them to give little artistic liberties, but you would expect for them to tell the truth about the good, bad, and the ugly of this individual.
Yeah, for sure. I think the play as a whole should be historically factual, but if you need to like kind of change something up a little bit to add some humor in, or whatever. But I would say for the most part, it does need to be pretty factual.
Okay, so with that in place, here are some of the historical inaccuracies, and we'll talk about whether or not that ruins the illusion of the musical. So the overall implication of the musical, in my opinion, was that Hamilton was sort of a man of the people, that he sort of pulled himself up by the bootstraps and was sort of a representative of the working class man, working hard and making it to the top. And from my limited research, I read a Harvard professor, Annette Gordon Reed. She's probably liberal leaning in all fairness, coming from Harvard. So she might be a little bit extra harsh on this, but she said that Hamilton was not, in fact, pro-immigrant, and he at the time was not a particularly strong abolitionist. He was not a champion of the little guy. He sold and bought slaves for his in-laws. At the time, he was moderately progressive in his views on slavery. So at the time, being moderately progressive would you still think that slavery is okay. Opposing slavery was never at the forefront of his political agenda. His political agenda was at the time characterized as protecting property rights, and at the time, slaves would have been part of your property rights. There's a kind of a love story in the thing between these two sisters and Hamilton, and there was a little bit of an exaggeration there. They said that he started falling in love with this woman while she was still single, but the girl, Angelica, was already a married woman with 2 kids when they first met. He didn't live... he and Aaron Burr were not as intertwined in their politics and their career as the thing suggested. They only met a couple of times. He worked for a slave trading company before moving to America, and he bought 2 slaves personally for $250. Hamilton liked big banks, and also wanted a Senate with senators that would serve for lifetime commitments. And Thomas Jefferson in the musical was made to look as though he was gone during the Revolutionary War in France, but he was actually here in America. And that's all the historical inaccuracies that I can find. So which one of those, Lane, stands out to you as someone who hasn't heard it as like something that they might have glossed over intentionally to make someone look artificially good?
So all the facts you just told me are true facts about him in real life, right?
As far as I can tell, this is a quick internet search, but I'm fairly confident in those factoids.
So then in the actual play, they don't portray him as, or the musical, sorry. They don't portray him as that type of person. They portray him more of like a heroic martyr type guy, like really good guy.
No, I even watching it, I looked at Clay and my niece, was like, wow, he was clearly an asshole. Like it.
They were very transparent about him cheating on his wife.
And just other things. Like he was very opportunistic. He stepped on people to get himself up. Like it was clear he wasn't a good.
I could see how this would be a controversy though, because I think one of the things that made Hamilton feel like a breakthrough kind of musical, and part of why it potentially got so much buzz, was because it was not like a predominantly white cast, and it might be, I don't have any reference for this, one of the first like rap, like very heavy rap based and influenced musicals. And so it's kind of counterculture potentially to be shining light on Hamilton having had slaves. It's like they maybe were ignoring that to try to go with the general theme and progress that this made. So I get how that could be potentially feeling deceiving to not know that was glossed over, kind of.
But to me, the people that are opposed to this musical, in my opinion, they would not take offense to that. To me, the people that are not going to go see this are more conservative leaning. They're not like the liberal folks that are saying that you're not portraying him as evil as you should. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's accurate.
What was Lane going to say, though?
Sorry, Lane. We were just talking about how conversations, you got to let other people talk, and I'm working on that day by day.
Well, I'll be completely honest. I was walking my dog in my neighborhood, and that's when I jumped on. But then I started talking to my neighbors, so I jumped off, and then I just picked up and called. So I really didn't even know what y'all were talking about.
I love it.
But I can wing it. I definitely called in during a conversation about nothing that I know about, but I'm learning something here.
That's good. That's what we're trying to do.
Go ahead.
So is this in July 2020, in the world that we're living in now, I'm assuming that there are people saying that they don't want to go, or that they're not going to support the play Hamilton anymore because there are inaccuracies in there, because he was essentially a slave owner.
I think the hardcore history buff takes offense at the portrayal of someone in an artificial way to sort of rewrite history in a kind of like a Disney sort of sense, in a way that Disney's kind of prone to do, where they like make people either, it's very binary, you're like very good or you're evil. So I think the hardcore history buff was looking for a little bit more nuance in there. I think the hardcore history buff also can respect like the musicality of it, and just the impressive performance, and the storytelling is pretty close.
And you do learn a lot, but I've actually seen people tweet like you're asking, Lane, and say, oh, I'm so glad a guy who owned and traded slaves the musical is hitting Disney Plus this month. So I think that's why some people are upset.
There was no overt mention of his owning of slaves, which again at the time was probably pretty commonplace. But they did sort of misleadingly at the end, in the wife's like final sort of like aria or whatever you want to call it, she was saying that, like, I will continue your legacy, honey, like you're dead, but I will continue your legacy to help free the slaves. And apparently that was a little bit misleading, that it wasn't as much of his agenda, it was more of her agenda. She was apparently more progressive in that front. But overall, I think the musical was trying to show part of the American dream, where it doesn't matter where you come from, I guess unless you're a slave, it doesn't matter where you come from, but if you work hard enough, you know, you can raise yourself up to this tremendous level of power. And so it's inspirational on that front. I think to tell the story of him.
Like movie magic. They change stuff in all movies, and he took an idea and some history and he made it his own. And I mean, I loved it, but I don't think they could have done.
Yeah, I mean, if they made a play about me, if somebody made a play about me in 100 years, I would hope that it was like factual to my life, not like stuff made up just to appease the audience. Or not appease the audience.
Yeah, especially with someone that is of such importance to the foundation of our country. He wrote some insane amount of the early precedent for how we're going to do business here. And so, yeah, I can kind of see both sides of it. To just straight off the bat write it off like I'm not going to watch it, to me is just silly. Because you're just kind of being like a hater. I looked at Melissa during the thing. I was like, dude, if you don't like this, you're just a hater. Like, this is so solid. It's so
just taking it
it's so polished.
All
but
the hard work that it takes to make something like that, and respecting that, and that, because they did. I mean, they busted their asses day in, day out to make it as good as it was. And
maybe there's a similar, like a parallel conversation that we don't need to get into, but maybe like with some of these Confederate monuments coming down, there's an argument to be made that you leave the monument and then you provide an additional monument with context about why this person is controversial in our current setting, in terms of just like immediately writing off, like, get that out of there. We don't want to see that. Perhaps there's something better to have a conversation behind. Hamilton was good, kids, but Hamilton was not, you know, Santa Claus. And here's why.
And I think they did show that he wasn't the greatest guy. I think they did that in the play, but not all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, loved it. And I don't think I would watch it again. Would you guys watch it again?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're like super musical people, like
or rewatching
type people. You had a friend. Wait,
I've seen a lot of people, watching it. Like, I think they've already watched it 5 times.
Wow. Yeah, I would watch it again.
There's a lot of like stuff. I would watch it a second time just to like see the little cool nuances of the choreography and stuff like that. But
watch YouTube clips like of King George, like specific, like I want to hear that battle rap, or I want to hear the first King
I want to
George
listen to the
thing.
soundtrack for sure.
That's a good get. I would like to listen to the soundtrack as well.
But Lane, it's on Disney Plus, so maybe you and Megan can watch it and see what you think.
Yeah, if you got a Verizon membership, you get a free Disney Plus.
If you have a Verizon,
hey, I was actually just about to say that.
Did you guys tell us about that?
Watch it now. I'm kind of intrigued now.
You should. It's real. I mean, there are parts that are so funny, but it shows, to me, it's just this exemplary thing of what busting your ass looks like, and really honing in on your craft and making it really, really good.
And it's just kind of sassy.
I'm all about that.
It's a little sassy.
Super sassy.
And I liked it. It had some swag to it for sure, that only a hip hop musical could bring. So
so Lane, it's a hip hop musical about Alexander Hamilton, and it's really interesting because he did take history and he took this idea, and it took Lin-Manuel Miranda like over 10 years to write this thing.
The whole thing. It's unbelievable.
So this is what I'm going to do. They always say you should read the book before you watch the movie. Is that right? Or the book's always better than the movie. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to research Alexander Hamilton, and I'm going to read up on him, and then I'm going to get my opinion and belief on this guy, and then I'll watch the show, and then I'll circle back around and let y'all know my opinion.
I like it.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. See, this is a cultural phenomenon here in quarantine tonight. We get some piece of art and, we're just taking it down to another level, baby.
Mm-hmm.